Hi there, and welcome to another Early Years Learning Hub podcast. My name is Jackie Ward, and I'm the founder and managing director of the Early Years Learning Hub. This episode is one of our Unpacking Theory and Research series, where I invite academics, researchers, and experts to tell us what the theory, research, or contemporary understandings mean for our day-to-day practice and our work as teachers, educators, and leaders. This episode is about the ideology and theory behind managing and supporting challenging behaviours through child-centred musical experiences. And today I am joined by Amelia Scarf, the founder of Rhymey. So, Amelia, I know our guests are always interested in the career trajectory that they might have eventually, so I would love it if you would tell our listeners a bit about yourself and your professional journey.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on, Jackie. I am very, very excited. So to start, I'm an early childhood teacher and I'm also an early childhood music specialist. And I have been in the profession for over 10 years now, doing a mix of both. And I guess with my over 10 years of breadth of experience, I've never worked at the same service. So I've had bit bouts of time in many, but I've had such a colourful, let's say, portfolio of experience, which is really built to where I am today. So I graduated with my Bachelor of Education in Early Childhood in 2014 from the University of Sydney. And I sort of dived straight into the profession from there. And one of my first really memorable roles, I worked at a community-based preschool in the upper North Shore of Sydney. And I was so lucky because I was so new. I was like the first cab off the rank. I was surrounded by women who had been very experienced educators and who had been in the profession for a long time. So I just absorbed everything. I absorbed so much. And I was so lucky. I was a full-time ECT in the same classroom as another full-time ECT to whom we are still great friends to this day. And we had a ball. And this particular team, I call them, they were part of the golden era of tertiary education. So a lot of them came out of that old teachers college. I think that was in Waverley, and and a lot of diplomas and cert threes as well, where music was just so embedded in the program, in their studies, in every unit. I think they talked often about they had to learn between, I think, 5 and 10 finger play songs off by heart to demonstrate or to perform to their tutors and their lecturers, which so they came out of their studies with a plethora of repertoire, and I came out with none, no child appropriate songs. So I dived straight into this role and I was just lapping up all of this musical repertoire, some of which I still use today and I still demonstrate in my workshops in Rhymey. So musically, this preschool was sort of like where the seed was planted, where my musical passion was really born. And I was just exercising it every day. I was using it in the classroom. We had so much fun. So I was there for a year, and then I worked as an ECT for 4 years at a independent private school in Sydney, in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. And it happened to be the school where I went as a student for 14 years. So I'd had the full, I guess, lifespan as a student there, from prep all the way through to year 12. And then I went back for 4 years and I taught. And that was amazing because, particularly back in the musical sense, went back and I worked with the music department, who were the same music teachers that taught me when I was in junior school and senior school. So it was the same familiar faces, and I'd studied music in HSC. My instrument is that I sing. So I had the same faces who knew and understood my passion. So they were very encouraging and very supportive for me to embed as much music as I possibly could in the early learning centre when I was there. And the more I did, the more they were noticing. And eventually, in the last 2 years of me working there, I was a 3 day a week teacher on the floor with the 3, 4, or 5 year olds. We sort of switched them each year. And then the other 2 days, I was preparing and rolling out the music program for the 3, 4, 5 year olds and also kindergarten. So the seeds that were planted in that community-based preschool were sort of coming to life here at this school. And it was fantastic. But then for some reason, my gut, it was just knocking at my door, my intuition just saying, there's more here. There's more to life in your music career. It was like at this school, I'd sort of hit this energetic glass ceiling. I was ready to move on. I was curious to know more, curious to find out what else was out there. So I then got a role which was sort of a dream role. It kind of forced itself into existence for me. It fell into my lap. Became the music specialist at the Early Learning Centre at another independent school. I don't think they'll mind me saying it was the International Grammar School in Ultimo. And I was there for 2.5 years solely for music. So I created the programs from scratch. We rolled them out. I was working one-on-one with children in small groups, in large groups. My whole life was music for 2.5 years. And it was everything that I'd learned across my career, the profession. I was just letting it out here. And I had the support, the encouragement from my employers, from the director, just saying, go nuts, have fun. And I was also co-conducting the choirs, some of the junior school and senior school choirs. I worked with the composer in residence, so they had contracted a composer to come in, and we got to work with this person who curated or composed an original piece based on the children's soundscapes from what we had created through instruments, through natural materials. It was the highlight of my career, this 2.5 years. I was living my dream really, and I had the full support from the team. So it was just fantastic. But again, after 2.5 years, it was that knock at the door of my gut just saying, there's something else, there's something more out there for you. So I left, and my husband and I, we did a sea change. We've moved from Sydney. We now live in the upper northern suburbs of Wollongong. And in this time that I've been down here, I've had so much space to reflect on all of that I've done, the impact that music has made. And I had so much time to sort of figure out, why does this work? Why is it when children come into contact with music, no matter if I had a classroom to myself or if I was a music specialist, I was seeing such an impact on their nervous system. They were walking out more calm, more regulated. They were working harmoniously. They were more engaged. I questioned, what was it about music that was changing this, that was leading them to this point? And so really kismetly, I'd met an occupational therapist called Megan Kelsall, who is a great friend of mine now. She won't mind me saying she's a fantastic occupational therapist. And I took my little host of songs, of repertoire, of activities, explorations all around music that I've used time and time again. And I came to her and I said, make this make sense. Why am I having this effect on children? Why is music having this effect on children? And more so, how can every educator have this same effect? And that became Rhymey, which is my business today, which is workshops. So I travel around and I help educators understand the theory behind music, so the science behind music and how it has this benefit and this impact, as well as providing them with the appropriate repertoire where then they have the ability to implement engaging, multisensory, authentic music experiences. So it's all about marrying the music, which is me, and the science, which is Megan's intake. So we come together and this is Rhymey. And that's where I am today.
Wow. I didn't want to interrupt there because I was just like, wow, I love the enthusiasm and the energy and
Thanks.
all of and I'm thinking to myself, I was definitely one of those golden era people. And yeah, we had a book and we wrote them all down when everyone brought it to the tutorial. It was a book of 20 finger rhymes and I just wanted to add in there that I definitely am not musical otherwise, but in terms of music experiences with early childhood experiences, I definitely learned that through my undergrad qualifications. So I'm very grateful for that. But I did come across this notion of music supporting, the theory around that supporting self-regulation and really supporting children who really struggle with the stresses and managing those challenges. And what a few years ago at a research symposium, and I thought to myself, it's kind of bringing it all together for me now. And I understand why probably there's some of those challenging behaviours out there, because we've got teachers and educators in the sector now who haven't had all of that. And I didn't know the science when I was a 20-something-year-old doing that. I just knew that these were the things that we did, and they worked. They worked to build rapport with children, and they worked to, bring joy to children's lives. And they obviously, I didn't realise, again, the connection between the science, but they also supported children to be able to be regulated and calm and engaged and be open to other learning experiences in that classroom. So I just wanted to throw it out there in case anyone's sort of thinking, but I'm not very musical. You can still can do it. Everyone can do it. And I love the fact that you've worked with an OT. The OTs have always been a mysterious creature to me. I'm like, what does an OT do? But they unpack, like the everyday things and the understanding of how things work and how children can better do and live in life. If you think about occupation for children, that's just playing and learning and growing, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I love the fact that you went to an occupational therapist and said, let's come together and help translate why that works for educators. Because I think sometimes when you talk to allied health professionals, it's too jargony and it's too high level that you can't kind of relate. So I think this is such a great idea, and I'm really keen to hear more. How do music experiences support teachers and educators effectively regulate classrooms and prime children for learning? What's the sort of, I guess, an overview or a summary?
Well, just to quickly what you said before about you don't think you're very musical. There's that very old adage, if you can speak, you can sing.
Yeah.
So that Rhymey rests on the theory of you don't need any musical experience whatsoever. If you don't want to sing, you can rhyme, you can lip trill, you can make animal sounds. That's all a part of vocal sounds, which again regulates. It's activating the vagus nerve in your body, which is directly linked to your breathing, your digestive system, your ability to regulate. I can go into that. I could speak about this all day, but specifically to the question you just asked, is how does music experiences support teachers? Well, music, like I said, music is scientifically proven through structured musical experiences, whether it's through beat or singing, vocal sounds, or any sort of movement. A small amount of time focused on them every day or some days, it will regulate young children. It brings them back to that calm, alert state. If you're aware of the zones of regulation, there's that green zone. And the green zone is the optimal level of arousal where children's breathing is even, they're listening, they're engaged, they're able to absorb the information and demonstrate what you're doing. It can be done through music quite easily. Like I've said, there's a lot of different ways that you can go into this and we can scientifically unpack it. Today, particularly, I really wanted to focus on inhibitory control. So inhibitory control, as you would know, it's that ability to stop, think, and go. And it sits in this little bowl, inhibitory control, of things called executive function, all these elements. So one of them is self-regulation, i.e. inhibitory control, working memory, and flexibility. So inhibitory control specifically, it's all about self-control, focus, and anticipation. That is the essence of regulation, being able to control oneself, focus on the task at hand, and anticipate what's coming next. And in early childhood, we always say children thrive on structure. Children thrive on knowing what's coming next. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes the alarm system goes off or we have a lockdown. It's the ability, though, within yourself as a child to control yourself, to manage frustrations, to manage emotional outbursts, right? How does that relate to music in any way? Well, I like to think of it, the way I explain it in our workshops is inhibitory control is like a muscle and music is like its gym. So any sort of movement or beat experience or any sort of music experience that's structured, if you're modulating the children's movements, the children's, interaction with an instrument or interaction with the song, that is in a way strengthening their inhibitory control muscle. So for example, any sort of stop games, move and freeze, any sort of wait your turn, then your turn to clap, pass the instrument on, their ability to stop, think and go, to self-control, focus and anticipate, it is through music, they're strengthening that muscle. Does that make sense?
That's a great explanation. I love it. And so this is one of the things I was going to say too. It's not about just putting on some tapes or tapes.
Tapes.
That's from the golden era, isn't it? A playlist or YouTube or whatever else. It's really about that hands-on kind of a thing, isn't it? With you singing or you tap, the instruments themselves. So a little bit more of a connection with real things, I guess. I'm trying to explain it in a way, but not coming.
Yeah. Look, when you have instruments or resources like scarves, ribbons, any sort of things that can accentuate the movement or, enhance the sound, that's extra. That's fantastic. However, if you just have a playlist of songs and there are parts of the songs that change, the tempo might change, the dynamics might change, adjust your movement or adjust your ability to demonstrate, a beat on your body the way that the music is intending you to. That's another way. That's the most simple way to engage in music where you're modulating the children's movements. So,
Yeah.
and also what I wanted to say was, children, humans, in the part of the human experience, we all love to be part of something bigger than ourselves. That's why if you love music, you attend festivals, or if you're a singer, you attend choirs or an orchestra, or you're a part of a choir and orchestra. It's if you're a part of something greater than yourself, you're actually syncing up with so many other bodies that are in the room. So for children, if you're in a circle, for example, you're doing a music experience, they are all trying to clap to the beat or tap to the beat in sync because they want to be part of something greater than themselves. They are trying their best to remain in synchronicity with every other child there. That is inhibitory control. That's the ability to control yourself, not to go too fast just because you feel like it, but to remain in the same beat as everyone else. That's just strengthening the muscle in itself.
That's amazing. And I always talk about too, the other, like there's so much rich learning embedded in music experiences anyway, isn't there? Like you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about with rhyme. Well,
Mm,
that's connected to phonics, isn't it? And to know that if I, once I do learn a word that I can read at school or whatever, if
mm-hmm.
I know that it rhymes with all of these other words, then now I know
Mm,
those words as well. So it's very
mm,
empowering from that point of view. And even,
yeah.
making a pattern and following a beat and all those sorts of things, very much related to maths and numeracy and all
Mm,
that sort of stuff. And there's
mm-hmm.
so much counting involved in most musical experiences, isn't there?
So many. And to what you said about rhyming, like I said, if you don't deem yourself, you cannot sing, you can just do rhymes. But the whole essence of rhyming is that we're taking music off this pedestal that society has put it on. Society deems it, well, particularly in early childhood, if you can't sing, if you can't dance, if you don't, well, particularly if you don't know any child appropriate music, or if you've never picked up an instrument, you don't touch it. And I understand with educators, they have so many hats to wear, so many roles to juggle. If you don't have music in in your bones, the last thing you're going to do is do a music experience throughout the day. It's just not on your radar. But what's happening with that is that the gap is widening between the child and the educator. Some children may only ever communicate through music. That may be their only language that they make sense of in the world. So educators who are just saying, I can't do music, it's too hard, or they don't sound right, or they're worried how they're going to sound, or they don't know enough, which is totally fair. But every day or every cohort that you go through in your career that you're not experiencing music, you're pulling away the opportunity for other children to expose themselves or to be a part of or to explore music on their very own. So the more we pull away from the language, the less that the children are going to be exposed to, and then we're going to have a generation of unmusical children.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that link too to the Reggio Emilio kind of concept of 100 languages of children.
Yeah,
Children
absolutely.
express themselves through, music and movement and dance and all those sorts of things as much as they do through painting and drawing and other, arts. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm a huge, huge fan of the concept. And I also think, the other thing that I don't mind, like I don't have to be an expert at doing those things. Like I'm really concentrating on implementing in my program at the moment lots of creative arts. So that includes drama, music, visual arts, lots of different things. I'm not an expert in any of them, but I'm just giving it a go and making sure that we are, you know, I'm giving children the opportunity, I guess, to express themselves, to make meaning, and to do that in a variety of different ways. And I also think it's really closely linked to children having opportunities to, take a lead role. I guess if for those children that are more visually arts creative, that's a chance for them to be the expert in that space. Or for those children
Mm,
that are a little bit more musical and that's their language, then that's an
mm.
opportunity for them to experience success. So that's not all about, well, so and so built a tower over there, or it's not, it's a balanced program, I guess, is what I'm
That's
saying.
right. It's the whole child. It's
Yeah,
holistic. And
yeah.
I think music, like you said, the 100 languages, that if you look at the 100 languages, music sits with writing, listening, observing, reading, loose parts, all sorts of painting. It sits there. And so why is it that we all of a sudden, just because we don't want to hear our own voice, we don't look at it, we don't even access it. And
Mm.
it coexists with every other language. I mean, it's people might roll their eyes and think, oh, it's easy for you to say you're a music specialist, but that's why I've created Rhymey. I've made it as simple and as accessible for educators to access, that you don't need to be an aria opera singer. You don't need to be a musician in any way. It is that simple to access beat, even just through a storybook, which I'll get to later about different ways that educators can, even from today. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's do it.
yeah.
Let's do it. So
Okay.
let's lead straight into that. I don't know where we were up to here, but I think that's the practical strategies bit we were talking about in our
Hmm.
notes.
Hmm.
What are some of the things that our listeners can implement now in their classrooms, whether it's school or early childhood?
Yeah. Well, I've really thought about this question, and it could be easy. If you ever ask a question, someone will just go, just Google it. It's just so easy
Yeah.
that the world is out there to access. But I think if you're such a newcomer, or you're starting really from the beginning, to go on YouTube or to go on Spotify, it is just overwhelming. The sheer quantity of music is beyond. I don't even think in my whole career I could play or engage in every single song that's available. The problem is, though, there's such a large quantity, but there's such a small amount of quality. And that's where Rhymey comes in, as it delivers high quality music where that you can use over and over and over again, revisit, look at it differently, things like that. So my suggestion for educators is to really start very, very small. Forget about YouTube, because YouTube, first of all, screen time,
Yeah.
that's a whole
Ads.
other that's a whole other podcast episode. Screen time with young children. But it's sifting through, you've got ads, there's all this. So just push YouTube to the side. I would even start with something with beat. If you can pull apart the concept of beat and how the millions of different ways that you can demonstrate beat on your body, whether it's tapping your knees, tapping your shoulders, clapping your hands, stomping your feet, clicking your tongue, clicking your fingers, raising your eyebrows. There's a million different ways that you can show beat. Start with beat. If
Mm.
you don't know any songs, if you are literally out, you have no songs to work with, start with a book. Find a book that rhymes. I know all early learning centers would have books available. Find a rhyming book. Clap along to the beat as you say the rhyme. That's just that simple. You can talk through it. And then if you have songs, you could start with a nursery rhyme, or a song that you already might know, but you tap the beat as you say it, and then you mix it out. Where can the beat go? Can the beat then go on your knees? Can you speed it up? Can you make the rhyme faster? Can you slow it down? Can you freeze in between, modulating the children's movements? Can you suggest a child where can they keep the beat on their body, incorporating their suggestions, making it theirs as opposed to always you directing? So just by modulating the movement, you've manipulated one song or one rhyme or one book in so many ways. This is one song, many ways. This is what Rhymey talks about. It's not about knowing a million different songs. It's about having a small pocket of songs that you can pull apart, and children can also add their own input. Oh, let's jump up and down for this one. Oh, that's different to what we did yesterday, which is tapping our knees. Having them incorporate more movement and modulating it in between, they're involved. That's a perfect starting point. And simplicity is key. You do not need to overthink the process, because it will leave room. If you don't overthink it, if you don't plan too much of it, it's going to leave room for the children to assist in how the journey might go. And there you go, there's another tangent. A child might go a completely different direction that you hadn't even thought of. That's a whole new journey for you. So leave room for the children to add, but start really simple. Just pick up a rhyming book and start tapping or clicking to the beat. It can be that simple.
I love that. Great opportunities to incorporate children's agency, but also, not so much time in preparation and all that kind of stuff. If you don't have a
Yeah.
lot of time to prepare, you can get that, and you can get really good at that thing and all the different variations of it before, and feel confident before you move on to something new. I would definitely agree. Give something a go and start small. It's small steps, I think, make a
Yeah.
difference, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So
massively.
I had a look at our notes again, and then I was also interested to talk a little bit about, because I think with children's behaviour, there's no quick fixes. And I think across the sector, in early childhood schools at all levels, we've got, I think, seemingly a lot more issues with challenging behaviours, violent behaviours, all sorts of things. So what what is it that we sort of need to think about, I guess, before we can think about making a change? Because I think people want some quick fixes, but I don't think it is. So have you got any thoughts or anything to add around that?
Yeah, you're exactly right. There are no quick fixes. But with Rhymey, like I've said, I'm not providing a band-aid. I'm not providing a temporary relief. I'm providing tools to heal. You know, when I do my workshops, one of the pictures I say, okay, so let's talk about what Rhymey is. And then I just have a picture of spaghetti bolognese and I say, this is Rhymey. I am providing you with a delicious, authentic bowl of spaghetti bolognese, the music. But you can't see it, but I've pumped in the dish millions of veggies, the nourishment, the science. So I'm delivering not just we're not creating music as just as a source of entertainment, just to keep the children quiet while you go and, set up the beds or whatever. It's more about we're creating music together, but we're also nourishing the nervous system. We're nourishing the brain. We're getting the brain and the body to talk to each other. Everything's syncing up in this process. Children wouldn't even realize that this is happening. It's like hiding the veggies in the bolognese. So really, I'm not, like I said, it's not a band-aid. This is not a quick fix. So Rhymey is providing these tools to create calmer learning environments for educators and children. If you heard of Jen Jareb, you must have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jen Jareb, she has a workshop called Traffic Jam in My Brain. And she in that workshop, she talks about a sensory diet. So not only do educators just can walk away with brand new songs and go, I'm just going to implement them. It's also about understanding where music will fit into the rhythm of the day. We're not doing music as a tick box. It's done. We did it this morning. It's finished. We're talking more about where do we think that music as a regulating tool, as a regulating piece, will be most beneficial for children? Where do we put it? So, for example, I always say wind makes children, it elevates their excitement. Some children will go into complete dysregulation into the red zone. Some children go into the blue zone and shut down, but wind is like, I don't know what it does. It has this weird quality to send children into
Every teacher
disarray.
knows that on a windy day.
Yeah,
It's got to
right.
be
So,
crazy.
so say you're outside, you've got the outdoor program set up, children are engaging in it, the wind picks up. You've got to bring them back in. They've hats flying everywhere, children are screaming. That is an example of a perfect time where you could incorporate music to regulate as a tool to regulate, right? So back to Jen Jareb, she talks about these sensory diets. So if we're talking about small groups of children or one child in particular, you might find these warning signs of children, particularly children with, you know, dysregulation or behavioral challenges. There's sensory diets where you can see the wheels are starting to come off. Things might happen. They might have a meltdown, they might shut down. You can just see there might be some signs. I had a child where I knew that the wheels were about to come off when they would bite their t-shirt and they'd pace up and down. And that's when I thought, okay, come with me. We're going to do a nice beat experience. We're going to wrap you up in Lycra. We're going to do some Lycra activities, some heavy work. You just jump in that moment and you use music as the tool to bring them back to that calm alert state. So that Rhymey not only just says, here's the tools, see ya, off you go. It's more about, here are the tools, but how are we going to use them? How are we going to benefit? And that's where it kind of gets rid of the whole idea. It's not a quick fix. It's a tool it's embedded and it's more lifelong. There's so much more richness to it, so much more nourishment to it. So if a quick fix was provided, it means I wouldn't have spent the time to help the educators build confidence because I think that the confidence is key, specifically in delivering music. People get stage fright, but what for? The children just want to do something different. So
Yeah.
it's just about, it's not a performance, it's a tool. Do
I
you see
love
what I'm
that.
saying?
Yeah, yeah. I love
Yeah.
the analogy of the spaghetti as well.
Yeah.
Packing it all full of the goodness. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I think we've covered off on all of the points that we had on our list
Good.
today. So that's amazing. So thank you so much, Amelia, for joining us. And I will
Thanks,
put a
Jackie.
link in our show notes to your website where people can find out more about all the amazing things that you offer. But it's been awesome to chat to you, and I think our listeners are going to love it. It's just, hopefully, it will revolutionize their teaching, and particularly the way that they view music as an opportunity to really support children to be the best that they can be as well. So thank you again,
Thank you,
Amelia. Really
Jackie.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. I love talking about this stuff. So, yeah, it's
Right.
very easy and great. Thank you so much.
No worries. And that's been another episode of the Early Years Learning Hub, our series Unpacking Theory and Research. We hope that you've enjoyed. We'll see you next time.